What if Deku had All for One? Chapter 2. All Might left the police station and headed towards the local hospital where Deku was being examined. All Might arrived just as Deku was finishing up. All Might buffed back up, out of view, and walked inside. Hey, young Midoriya, how are you doing? Deku was in the waiting room and turned his head and waved All Might over to him. All Might, come over here. I'm just about to get my test results. I want you to hear what the doctor has to say. The doctor walked over holding a clipboard and gestured for the two to follow him. Deku and All Might were led into a side room and the doctor started talking. Well, kid, good news. You have a quirk, said the doctor. However, what is it? Deku asked. It's not a normal quirk. It almost looks like you have two. The doctor pulled out a picture. This is a picture we took of your quirk genes. The doctor pointed to several round blobs on the picture, then stroked his chin. However, there is something different about yours. See, normally when people have multiple quirks, there is either an equal number of each quirk gene, or there is a combination molecule that is the two combined. But with yours, the doctor produced another picture. This time, it was a side-by-side shot of two blobs. This is a picture of somebody else's quirk genes. The person had two powers, so notice how the quirk genes have fused together to make a combination molecule. This person had two powers, so notice how the quirk genes have fused together to make a combination molecule. The doctor then pointed at another image. If we look at yours, however, we can see that there is one massive quirk gene, then attached to the side there is a very small one. Not only that, but we found that your quirk genes are naturally several times bigger and more numerous than anyone I've ever seen. Now I don't know what this means, but if anything strange happens with your new power, don't hesitate to call. The doctor slid a small card across the table. Have you experienced anything weird before now? Deku flashed back to when he slammed the sludge bin against the wall. I think I might have stolen someone else's quirk. The doctor was shocked. He had never heard of anything like this. It's true, Doctor. I saw it with my own eyes. The boy managed to turn someone who was entirely made of sludge back to a human form, and just minutes later used the same sludge power to defend himself from the villain. I have even heard from prison doctors who examined the villain that they can't find any quirk genes in his body. The doctor's jaw hit the floor. It couldn't be possible, and that explains it. The small quirk gene must be the sludge gene. Well, again, if you have any worries, don't hesitate to call. Remember to update your quirk records. All Might and Deku walked out of the office. Thank you for being with me, All Might. I'm still a bit confused, but at least it's all worked out okay. Yeah, it did. Do you want a lift home? All Might asks. Oh my god, I forgot to go home. It's been hours. My mum must be so worried. Deku started panicking. Don't worry, I'll explain everything to her. Thanks, All Might, Deku said. They walked outside and All Might bent his knees. Climb on. You will be home in no time. Deku put his hand on All Might's shoulder when suddenly everything went black. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't move. All he could feel was pounding in his heart. He tried to call out, but no sound would escape his mouth. Finally, something happened. Slowly, out of the darkness rose a group of people. There were 7 of them, all in a line, but there was an 8th. He was looking straight at the 7 with clear disgust. Deku felt sick to his stomach. He couldn't take it. He cried out again, and this time, sound came out. As if to reply, all the figures spun their heads unnaturally quick and faced Deku. Each of their faces was completely black, except for a set of burning white eyes and a wide white smile. Then he heard it. Like bone grinding on bone, a sickening voice crawled its way out of the mouth of each of the figures. They all spoke in unison. Who are you? Deku turned to run away, but he was met with another figure. This one was more detailed. It towered over Deku. Its hollow white eyes stared into his, and he felt like his head would burst. He turned away again, and saw that the figures that had been a few meters from him before now stood directly in front of him. All of them looked like giants before him. Who are you? The figures screamed this time, burning their gaze into his body. Deku felt powerless. He closed his eyes and hoped that it was all a dream. He reopened them, but he was still surrounded by darkness. Deku panicked, wondering if he could ever escape this nightmare. He looked around and noticed that all the figures had turned their backs to him. They had all fallen to their knees, all but one. They all knelt before one of the figures, the darkest of them all, the figure that stood alone when this all began. Deku turned, but again he was blocked by the massive spectre. It was the only other figure still standing. Before Deku could react, a giant fist was swung towards Deku. He flinched and opened his eyes. Suddenly the figure turned into the massive figure of All Might, who was holding out a hand to help Deku, who was lying on the ground. Ah! Get away from me! Deku pushed away All Might's hand, and crimson lightning bolts covered the area. They cut into the ground until kaboom! Deku was launched across the street into a nearby bush. Deku opened his eyes in the bush. Oh, what happened? Why am I in a hedge? All Might leapt across the road and landed in front of Deku. Young Midoriya, are you okay? What was that just now? What do you mean? You froze, then collapsed. When I reached out to help you, you told me to get away from you. Then you launched into a hedge. Like a tsunami, all the memories of the figures came flooding back. I saw something when I touched your back. What do you mean? What did you see? I saw 8 people. Did he see the previous holders of One for All? All Might thought. No, 9 people. Deku said. Are you sure it was 9? All Might asked. Deku was confused. This is the detail he was confused on? Not the fact he was seeing people? Yeah, 9 people. 7 in a line, 1 facing them, and another behind me. Tell me everything. In detail. Okay. It was impossibly dark. There were 7 people in line, and facing them was a darker figure. I cried out, and they all turned to me and asked who I was. Their voice was the worst part. It sounded like hell itself. They had no faces, only cold white eyes and massive smiles. When I tried to run, there was a 9th one behind me. Wow, that's intense. What happened next? All Might asked. I tried to turn away again. The other figures had surrounded me, and they were yelling, Who are you? I tried to close my eyes to escape, but when I opened them, I was still there. The 7 were facing away from me, and they were on their knees in front of the 8th. I turned around and 9 swung at me. That's when I woke up to you, reaching out for me. Sorry about the reaction. No, it's fine. We've had a very stressful day. Do you want to go home now? All Might asked. Yes, please, Deku said. All Might held out his hand, and nervously, Deku took it. Nothing happened. No explosion, no vision. Deku climbed on All Might's back and held on tight. After a short flight, the two landed near Deku's house. They walked up the stairs and knocked on the door. Deku was around 6 hours late home because of what happened. The door was immediately swung open, and a very confused and angry Inko stood there. Izuku Midoriya, where have you been? Inko trailed off when she saw the towering figure of All Might behind him. All Might? Why is All Might here? Izuku, explain. Please, let me. I'm here to apologize for your son's delay in coming home. It was all my fault. Please, may I come in so I can explain everything? All Might said. Inko was very confused, but quickly regained her composure. Yes, of course, it would be an honor, Inko said. They all walked inside and sat at the table. Please, ma'am, forgive me. I failed to save your son from a villain today, All Might said. Inko was shocked. A villain? Wait, what? When? A villain I was pursuing with a sludge quirk attacked young Izuku on his way home, and I failed to protect him. For that, I am deeply sorry. All Might bowed his head. Wait, if you failed to protect him then, how is he here? Deku's head dropped at this comment, still shaken by the violent events that happened today. Your son saved himself. Inko's jaw basically hit the floor. She stared at All Might, then at Deku, then back at All Might. What do you mean? Young Izuku awakened his quirk and defeated the villain. Deku shivered as the images of the burnt body of the sludge villain wormed their way back into his mind. A quirk? But the doctor said it wasn't possible. Inko stood up and hugged Deku. Oh, I'm so happy for you, honey. You finally have a power. However, her praise stopped when she felt her son shaking. Oh my god, honey, what's wrong? He's struggling with the nature of his quirk, All Might said. Inko sat down across from All Might, but brought Deku with her so she could keep an arm around him. Young Izuku has the power to steal quirks. Deku burst into tears. His power was evil. It stripped someone of part of their identity. He accidentally used this power on a villain who attacked him. Izuku stole villain's sludge quirk and left the man with serious burns all over his body. Inko put her hand to her mouth and tears came to her eyes. I'm sorry, Mum. I couldn't control what's inside me. Deku buried his head in his mother's arms, and she hugged him. It's okay, honey, Inko said. Ma'am, you don't need to worry. Young Midoriya isn't in any trouble. Inko took a breath. She'd been terrified that her son was going to prison. Hey kid, you might want to listen to this bit too. I've encountered someone with the same power. Deku's eyes went wide. He thought he was alone, but there's someone else. Maybe he could learn from them. If All Might knew them, then maybe they were a hero. He called his quirk All for One, and he went by the same name. Wait, I've never heard of a hero called that. Wait, Deku thought. That man was a villain. He stole hundreds of power and was my greatest enemy ever. Deku's heart stopped. Was his destiny to become the next version of this villain? Deku flashed back to when All Might showed Deku his injury and put 2 and 2 together. All Might stood up and knelt to the floor. Ma'am, it's my fault that this happened to your son. I should have been faster. Please allow me to make this right, All Might said. All Might lifted his head and looked into Deku's eyes. Do you still want to be a hero? Silence fell on the room. The adults focused their attention on Deku. Being a hero has always been my dream. For all my life, I want to help people. So yes, I do. But Deku stopped and looked at his hands. I don't want to use my quirk on people. I never want to do that to another person, even if they are a villain. I understand. What about the sludge quirk? Deku continued to look at his hands. Yeah, I think I can work with that. All Might smiled. As young Midoriya still wishes to become a hero, then please allow me the privilege of training him and help him grow into the greatest hero he can be. Deku gulped. Him trained by All Might? It was impossible. Why would you want to train me? Deku asked. I see great potential in you, not because of your power, but because of your heart. That is what makes a hero. If you can promise me his safety, then yes, you can train with him, Inko says. I promise. All Might bowed his head again, then rose to his feet. I should be going. It's been a pleasure, ma'am. Young Midoriya, as it is the weekend, will you meet me on the beach tomorrow morning for some training? Sure thing, All Might. I'll be there, Deku said with a smile. Great, I'll see you then. All Might bid his farewells and then left the building. Meanwhile, Far away, in the underbelly of a far-off city, a doctor stood, shaking in fear. Surrounded by darkness, the doctor pulled some files out of his bag. It's almost identical. It's as if it's the same power. The only difference is the number of quirks he has. The files were snatched out of his hands by a figure cloaked in darkness. His harsh and heavy breathing was the only noise in the small room. Interesting. Who knows what this imposter is? But we shouldn't worry. He wants to play hero, so we should let him. Let him build up his dreams, and I'll crush him. That's if he can even last that long. There is something else. The kid wasn't alone. He was with All Might. Interesting. What are you planning, All Might? It doesn't matter. Your little experiment won't save you. End of chapter 2.